Ooh.
Hello, and welcome to another Frakkin podcast. I'm Marty, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
Van.
And Joseph.
And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're tuning in again, thank you so much for returning. We're so glad to have you back. Today's episode is The Delta Dilemma Part 2, and we'll be discussing different different captains of sci-fi and how they would fare in Janeway's shoes in the Delta Quadrant.
Here we go.
And we're back.
Good
Very
morning.
excited.
Ooh. And we have already people in the comments section. That's awesome.
Yay. Very exciting. I am very excited about our list of captains. It was difficult last time we recorded to skip over some of the captains. I was like, but I want to talk about them. So I'm really glad we're coming back and finishing out the list.
And let me get the
excited.
list so that we can share with everybody who we're talking about.
I feel like we might have some more controversy on this list than we did the last one. When I was going through it, I thought, man, I'm really torn on some of these people. So it'll be interesting to see what
I
everyone
have
says.
strong feelings on this list. What I noticed is that we forgot to put Cain on the list. So
We did kind of skip over Cain.
we can add Cain to the end of the episode, I guess. So
we
anyway,
can just talk about her now and say no.
Okay, well, let's talk about Cain now then. So we were talking about
Man.
Admiral Cain from Battlestar Galactica, and
Admiral Cain is not making it. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think she would either. I think she's too rigid.
I mean, yeah, who am I kidding? She would. I don't think she makes it very far out of season one. If she even makes it out of season one at all.
We didn't
Yeah.
get a lot about her and her decision making in Battlestar Galactica, but the decisions she did make, what we are aware of, I'm like, that's not going to work.
No, she was just very by the book, and I think just so cruel. Like there's no empathy at all.
No.
She wasn't open to discussion either. And I think that's a big thing with Voyager is that Janeway was really open to listening to her senior officers when they had a dispute. And of course, we saw in the beginning with the Maquis how that was very difficult for her. But I feel like Cain would have just been like, not listening to anybody. And I think to her detriment.
The Maquis would never have been allowed to be part of the ship.
No, she would have.
She probably would have executed them. Yeah.
And
not even, we're going to take you guys home. Just sit in your bunk the whole way. It would have been like, no, we're just going to space you.
And I think that's the interesting thing about taking Janeway's situation with Voyager as opposed to one of the other Star Trek captains' situation on the Enterprise, because I feel like with Voyager, you can't go by the book with everything. That's like the one thing that might actually destroy your chances of survival. Whereas with the Enterprise, maybe with the Enterprise in the Alpha Quadrant, going by the book is going to save you. And I think with Voyager, that's what hurts you.
I don't think she even does well in the Alpha Quadrant, to be honest.
I don't think she would make a very good Starfleet captain.
No. She's
maybe Klingon or Romulan. I can see her being a Romulan. Really good Romulan.
Yeah. I see that for sure.
I mean, good for her, but
and I think she would thrive on the other side of the neutral zone, but I don't think she would fare very well in the Delta Quadrant.
She might do well in the Gamma Quadrant, though. Like, that's a whole separate topic, and let's not go there. But
Okay, we're spending way more time on her than I anticipated.
Okay,
Next.
next.
Let's get to
move
some
on.
real captains.
Yeah.
Real
Ah,
Captain
I love this
Benjamin
man so
Sisko.
much.
Sisko.
I think the biggest question I have is Jake with him or not? Because I think that completely changes how he does everything, like how he is in his decision making. I think if Jake is not with him, I think he is going to be far more serious about getting home faster because he does not want to like miss any more time than necessary with Jake. So,
I mean, I think the length he stays in the Delta Quadrant changes, but Cisco makes it.
oh,
Cisco
yeah.
absolutely makes it.
I definitely believe he makes it. I do think that his command structure on Voyager would be very different, possibly than Janeway's, because I think uh he would be stricter. I feel like he would be more like how we see him in the final seasons of Deep Space Nine, where he's just I don't want to call him rigid because I don't think he's rigid, but I feel like he's, for lack of a better word, more defiant in his demeanor.
Um,
I
I
think
love that.
I do like that, but I think in the beginning he's very Starfleet, and towards the end of the show he's like Starfleet isn't enough here. We're like on the edge of Starfleet and you can't just be by the book. And I think he would make that transition faster in the Delta Quadrant. He'd go from Starfleet to, okay, we have to come up with a slightly different way to behave, a slightly different set of rules. So I
Yeah.
think he'd be really good at that. And I think he would take on the Maquis probably faster than Janeway did, but not by much.
Yeah. I think without Eddington, right? He is a compassionate
Right.
person, and he had a personal vendetta with Eddington just because of that relationship that they had. But if you look back towards In the Pale Moonlight and how he did
Mhm.
what was best for the Alpha Quadrant, no matter the personal cost, I think he does make it home faster in general. Because I think he's a little bit more morally gray than Janeway. Not so much that
Yeah.
he would, that one ship that um used the aliens as a power source, like he's not that extreme, but he would have a harder hand on alien species. Um, I think his reaction to the Borg would be very fascinating, to be honest. And I'm not sure how he would deal with Seven, because I mean, the Borg killed his wife. Um,
That's true.
and I think that's an interesting point because in Voyager, future Janeway helps with the anti-Borg equipment, but Cisco is essentially an engineer and a starship builder. He helped design the Defiant class. I think there's a lot to how he would handle dealing with the Delta Quadrant. It would be interesting.
It would be very interesting. I wouldn't mind watching that show. I think it'd be very engaging, but yeah, he definitely makes it back. The Borg, I think, would be a pretty fascinating storyline just because of his personal history. But I
Yeah.
don't think he keeps Seven. And if he did keep Seven, I don't think she becomes the character that we love because he's not going to have the more parent-child relationship that Janeway had. He's not gonna do that. Like, another character would have to come in and, like, try and guide Seven, into being human, and I don't know, it would probably be the Doctor, who is not very good at being human because he's not human.
No, I agree with that because I don't think he would have the compassion for Seven that Janeway ended up having for her. And I don't think that Seven, like you said, Seven definitely wouldn't become the Seven that we know. She would remain more Borg.
I don't know. I think at
Really?
first you're absolutely right. But if you look at the way Worf grew as a character under Sisko versus Picard, right? Like, I think once somebody is on the crew and he's responsible, it's going to be a different type of personality, but he does empower his people. He is compassionate for his people. Um, I think his relationship with Seven will be very complex and probably remain so, but I think she will become probably a bit more of a badass, like akin to what we see in Picard, despite how you feel about Picard and the
Hey,
fact that it sucks. I think
Well,
Seven's
we like
amazing in
Seven.
Picard.
We love
Seven's
Seven in Picard.
amazing.
Yeah.
yes, seven is the star of Picard.
Absolutely.
Well, how do you think he would
So
deal with Chakotay, though?
I think there would be some respect.
From Chakotay to Sisko?
I think both ways, honestly, because we're talking about early on, they are in a different situation. I think maybe it's a little bit rocky at first, but I think Sisko will connect with Chakotay on a different type of level, right? Like this, there won't be kind of this like partner level, but it will be very business at first, just like he was with Kira, right? Like Kira did not like him in the first few episodes of Deep Space Nine. So I think they butt heads, but he kind of lays it out and then he proves himself to the Maquis. And I think he'll prove himself in different ways. He can be diplomatic when he has to be, though.
That's true.
He's my favorite Starfleet captain.
I think he's definitely one of the most interesting Starfleet captains. And I think because Deep Space Nine was a different type of show, it really gave us the opportunity to see him as a captain in a different light from other captains. And I think that's what's really exciting about talking about Sisko.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, okay, so we're going to dive into this comment a little bit. What did the Bajorans do if Sisko disappears in season 3 of Deep Space Nine? I think that is like soul crushing for the Bajoran people because
I
he
think it would
is the
destroy them.
emissary.
Yeah.
It would.
Because
I
whoever
think
they replace him with is not going to become the emissary. And that's going to take away Bajor's major trust in
well,
Starfleet.
Bajor ends up falling to the Dominion without Sisko. I think they get reconquered by Cardassia, and it's much worse for the Bajorans. I think they really suffer. And I think
I think
overall Starfleet
you
does.
are not giving the prophets enough credit here. Like they would just appoint somebody else, or
You
Kai
think?
Wynn would come in and be like, "Oh, this is exactly what needed to happen. He will return even better." Blah blah blah. Like like never
The prophets would just
underestimate
bring Sisko back?
religious people. Yeah. Well, the
I
prophets
mean,
actually, yeah, maybe.
I think, yeah, Voyager is either this like very rich, long series, or it's one season because they blink Voyager back because he has like a chat with the prophets.
Well, they just got to get him to a nice, convenient wormhole and then pull him back. It'll be fine.
So
We
He's
can
Star
got to
Trek
trust.
go do some
Voyager under
soul
Sisko,
searching and
2
learning.
episodes long.
Yeah. Maybe we
Uh,
get 3 or 4. But then they find it'd be a really nice movie.
it would be a great movie.
Be a great
Now, there are
movie.
some more comments. Kai Wynn takes over.
Kai
Yeah,
Wynn.
she's going to take over, and
Yeah.
it's going to be horrible because Kai Wynn is one of my least favorite people in Star Trek.
I love to hate
But
her so
rightfully
much.
so, though. But
I
rightfully
love
so.
to hate her.
I love exactly. You love to hate her because her people have gone through this. Like anyway, I
Yeah.
will deep dive into
That's
Deep Space
our
Nine.
that's our villain episode.
Join
And
us
That's
next
our
week
villain.
on
Like I'm getting a little passionate here. I'm gonna step back. Okay. Forcing you thought you were gonna go long, Van. I will rant
Ah,
about this
you know
until
what?
I pass out.
I'm letting you have your Cisco. It's
I
fine.
like it because it gives us the opportunities to discuss this more on different episodes. So
Yes, we
now
will
we
revisit.
know what gets you passionate.
We will
We just got to
revisit
bring
this
up
whole
Deep
thing.
Space Nine, and Joseph will just talk.
Yeah,
So
This is
if we
I
ever
mean,
interesting.
don't want to talk at all, Marty, that's all we got to do.
I just want to comment real fast. I don't think Q would even bother with Voyager if Sisko was on it. He wouldn't even show up.
No, Q would not show up. Q would be like,
He'd be
not
like, nah,
interesting.
now,
been there, done that, board.
now, what
Especially
if?
if it's after the punch.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he'd be like, no, this guy is no fun to play with.
what if? What if Janeway was in charge of DS9 while Cisco's on Voyager?
Is Janeway the emissary?
I think she would be an even more reluctant emissary than Sisko, to be completely
She
honest.
would. She
She
absolutely
has
would
a very
refuse.
science background. She would just be like telling them no repeatedly.
Yeah, but it's an
Ooh.
interesting thought.
Ooh, I would. Somebody write the fan fiction, please. This is my
I
request.
mean, we have the need for so much fan fiction, Marty.
We really do.
We
We
got to get
really do.
started.
We
Somebody needs
need
to get on this.
we need you to basically.
Please stop doing your actual job and just
Yes.
write Star Trek fan
So
fiction.
everybody
for us,
send me
please.
your requests and I'll start them tomorrow. My job can wait.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
Moving
We're moving
on.
on.
This is going to be good.
Captain Archer, the best captain in Starfleet history.
And I'm going to say, oh boy.
I like how you tried to say that with a straight face and it did not work, Joseph.
Hold
I
on.
just want to point out.
Let's just leave it. Okay. This is where
Handing
we're
the floor
gonna.
to you. The floor is yours.
So, anyone who knows me knows I met Susie in person last year. And we knew each other from Trek Talk for a while. And it was by complete coincidence. I happened to move like 20 minutes from her. And we met in person. And it was love at first sight, to be completely honest. It really was. Like immediately we're like, oh, we're the same person. This is great. Easiest, fastest friendship ever. And one of the first things we bonded about was how much we both hated Archer. Okay. We hated him so much. Yeah. Uh, this man would not make it. I don't think he would make it through season 1.
I'm
There's
playing with views. Sorry. Continue.
I don't think he'd make it through season 1. If he had the opportunity to try and take the array back, I know we weren't giving the captains the opportunity to, but he definitely would be like, the Okampas will be fine. It's not really my problem.
I
We're gonna try and take this array back.
He is not a good captain. I for the life of me, I don't know why Tucker wasn't captain of that ship. The fact that he
Paul.
deferred to Archer and Archer becomes this like central pillar of Starfleet. I'm going to say this. Archer is the reason why the Maquis had to be necessary.
I wouldn't
Because
argue against that.
he sets a horrible example for what it's like, what it means to be a Starfleet captain. And I don't. How do I explain this? He's just stubborn and self-righteous needlessly.
So awful. He's
I
the
like
definition.
Archer.
Okay. He's the definition
I-
of a Nepo baby, is what it is. The only reason he was
Yeah.
ever a captain is because of his dad. He was not the best qualified person at all. And I think that's awful that they'd be like, yeah, no, this super important job, we're sending our first captain out. And we're just gonna send the Nepo baby. Even though the Vulcans, who have been doing this for hundreds of years, are like, no, you guys, you need to sit down. You need to wait. You are not ready. And then they rely on the Vulcans to save their butt so many times. Without the Vulcans there to rescue him, even with just information, Archer's dead in season 1.
No, I mean, I'm not an Archer apologist. I mean, I do like Captain Archer. I don't think he's a great captain, but I do like him. I think he's a great captain only because of T'Pol, and I think without T'Pol, he doesn't even make the list of fantastic Star Trek captains. Do I think that he would survive in the Delta Quadrant? Absolutely not. And I think the crew would have a very eye-opening experience when their nostalgia is shot to find out that Archer is kind of put on a pedestal that he doesn't necessarily deserve. But I don't think he'd make it out of the Delta Quadrant. But I don't hate him as much as some people hate him.
I don't hate him.
Maybe it's because I love his dog and I want to make sure his dog makes it. I love Porthos.
But you're muted for some reason, Van.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'll get back to my ranting. I love Porthos. I want everything good to happen to the puppy, but also I think I would hate Archer less if you were not like the first captain. Like if you were anywhere else in time, I think I would hate him less. But because he is like the first captain that's going out and venturing into new places, it just really bothers me that he is like the first. Like that's what humanity sent out. And he is so arrogant all the time. He is not diplomatic. He's supposed to be diplomatic, and he's not. He gets a reputation for being this like badass warrior, and then he's surprised by that after that's how he acts, and then he's like, whoa, what? I solved all of these problems with violence, and now you're calling me a warrior? No, that's not what we're about.
I mean, there's one episode that basically tells me he's a bad captain. And it's the episode where Porthos pees on the sacred tree, and he cannot fathom the fact that he has done something wrong by letting his dog down on a random planet he knows nothing about with a culture he knows nothing about. So that alone tells me he was not prepared for the mission that he was given. And it also tells me he's not prepared to survive the Delta Quadrant.
Absolutely.
I do respect his love for his animals, but yeah, he should have known better. And without T'Pol, he wouldn't.
Without T'Pol,
he wouldn't even survive his own ship without T'Pol.
No.
So,
but that's what I'm saying. Without the Vulcans,
and here's
he
the
was
thing.
dead.
Like, so they put T'Pol in that show to mirror like the Spock Kirk relationship, but either of them would survive the Enterprise without the other, except it wouldn't be as much fun.
Yeah.
Right. Like either of them are great leaders on their own.
Yeah.
Archer, no. Now, Mara said, isn't stubbornness a good trait in leaders? And my answer to that is passion is a good trait in leaders. Stubbornness, in my opinion, is not.
I wouldn't even call his stubbornness the problem. I would call his arrogance.
Yeah, I was going to say ego.
It's past stubborn. It's like he has so much ego.
Especially in the first season, he doesn't even give the Vulcans a chance to explain why he's not prepared for this. He just lets his ego say, hey, we are humans. We're going to prove that Earth is ready for anything. Doesn't matter that we haven't even touched the surface of it. So I don't know if I would call him stubborn, because when push comes to shove, he does listen to Trip, and he does eventually start listening to T'Pol. But I do think ego is his biggest hurdle in the first few seasons.
If he had, look, the Vulcans are definitely being manipulated by the Romulans to try to keep Earth, whatever, passive.
As always.
As always, the Romulans were behind a lot. But he doesn't make it off the first 2 episodes of his own show without T'Pol keeping him from doing something stupid and getting the Klingon killed, and thus getting the Klingons to just wipe Earth out altogether. So the fact, like the Kazon are probably everybody mocks the Kazon as like, the Wish.com version of the Klingons. And that's valid, but I think he has a hard time with the Wish.com version of the Klingons on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I like your point from earlier. I think it would be interesting if Trip had been captain, what that would change. I don't know. That's a good question for another episode.
I think they're back and forth in the first season or two against the Vulcans. This is like self-perpetuating block to the growth of their characters. And I think Trip without Archer is much more diplomatic and kind than Archer would have been.
I mean, to be fair, I never really understood why Trip and Archer were friends to begin with.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, because Trip is a good human being and Archer is a mediocre one. And I am...
He takes care of his dog, though.
He
except
does
for the
take...
cheese.
Except the cheese. Yeah.
Okay. There are redeeming traits to Archer. I don't hate him as much as Van, but I just don't think he's an overwhelmingly good captain. That's all.
He's definitely not my favorite on the list of captains.
No.
I don't think he could be put into really any other Star Trek show and succeed as well as he did in Enterprise. But that's mostly because what we've been saying, he needed the Vulcans, specifically to Paul, to like rescue him. I don't think Spock would rescue him in the same way. Like,
no.
Spock would be like, this is not working. Like, he deals with Kirk's ego, but that's different. Kirk does have an ego, though.
Kirk does have an ego. Anyway.
But Kirk can be put in check.
Yes.
He knows when to step back and be like, okay, Spock is right. Okay, McCoy has a good point. I know he knows when he's over
more
the top.
willing to listen to the people around him. Yeah, no.
I like this comment.
Archer's
Porthos makes it out of the Delta Quadrant, but Archer doesn't. That's because Porthos finds Janeway. Janeway's a dog person. She gets him.
Janeway would love him. She would be so happy.
Porthos would be so much healthier with Janeway. Anyway.
True.
Yes. I think the reality probably is that Archer would not incorporate the Maquis as early. And I think that Chakotay and the rest of the Maquis would probably have a problem with his, everything. And
I don't know. I mean, he took the Makos on.
Yeah, but look.
Yeah.
I think the Maquis
sees him and Chakotay would butt heads. So even if he would maybe take on the Maquis, he's not going to give him the positions of authority. And without that, the Maquis are not going to be like settled in. And I think Chakotay like replaces him.
Yeah.
And as we discussed, Chakotay, I don't think can captain his way out. So
he couldn't captain his. Never mind. I'm not gonna give spoilers, but look, on his first.
Not everyone has seen Prodigy. Shh.
Oh,
go see Prodigy.
Go watch Prodigy.
Watch Prodigy.
Oh my goodness. It's the best Star Trek show currently.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So good.
So, Archer
doesn't make it.
I'm so glad you have that sound effect just for him.
Perfect.
I got that just because I knew this was coming up.
I love that for us.
Next one.
Who is next?
Captain Pike.
Captain Pike.
Oh, so I have some thoughts about Pike, and it's definitely less than Archer. But from what we see in Strange New Worlds, he cooks all the time for fun. And I think he immediately starts cooking. So Neelix never gets that job, which might help with crew morale overall, because they don't have to eat Neelix's food. They get to eat Pike's. But I think that might distract him from captaining.
I don't. He's Friday night dinners only, right?
I think I think Pike bonds with Neelix way quicker than Janeway does.
Oh, they would get along great.
And I
They're
think
like
Pike can
besties.
survive without coffee.
I think Pike probably can, yeah, survive without coffee. But I think he probably bonds with Neelix a little bit quicker. I think he does allow the Maquis to hold positions. I'm not sure that they would be the same as Janeway, though. I'm not sure he has Chakotay as his number one.
No, I think if anybody in the Maquis ends up, his number one is going to be B'Elanna. To be honest, like he's got this like he seems to really enjoy a powerful woman as his first officer, and
I mean,
yeah,
I agree that he would maybe consider B'Elanna as his first officer until he gets 7 and 7 finds her footing. I think 7 would be a
yeah,
fantastic number 1 for Captain Pike on
I think
Voyager.
Seven and Pike would
yeah.
be perfection together. I think that they would be very, very good together in the leadership
And
role.
I'm gonna maybe controversial. I think Harry Kim is gonna get his promotion on that ship.
I think Harry Kim gets promoted like second season, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even think Pike waits that long. I think it's much sooner.
Yeah.
He's
Honestly, I think
very
morale would be pretty
serious.
good.
He's very
Because
serious about like building up his crew. And he is more so he's more rewarding, I think, in how he captains than Janeway is. So he's more likely to give people the quote unquote carrot. Like here, we're in the middle of nowhere. Gotta raise
Mhm.
spirits. You get a promotion and you get a promotion and you get a promotion.
and you're all invited to dinner on Friday
Yes.
night.
Please come to dinner. Don't wear your dress uniform.
No, I think I think
Yeah.
for me, Pike, in contradiction to Archer, I think he would recognize that he's behind the time on the technology, and he would take the focus to and the time and focus to have the crew catch him up.
Mhm.
Instead of trying to pretend like he knows everything, which I think Archer would probably try to do at the start. I think Pike would absolutely admit, "Hey, I know I'm not from your guys' time. Give me time to catch up." But command and leadership skills are the same regardless of time
Yeah.
period.
Mhm.
And I think that would gain a lot of respect from the Voyager crew.
I think he's much more diplomatic than Janeway even is, right? And again, I say this not lightly because I love Janeway, but Pike, I think, does well um, once he gets caught up. I I think Seska probably presents more of a challenge for him because he's not great with intrigue, um, but he's great with bonding with the crew. And honestly, I think Tom Paris and Tuvok are able to reach him in a way that um, Janeway didn't necessarily get reached out to. Like, I know she loves Tuvok, right? But I think he takes Seska as a threat much sooner because of the way he is.
I don't
Um,
think Seska is the problem that she was in Voyager if Pike is captain. I don't think that she does the same thing. I don't think she joins the Kazon. I
you don't
think
think so?
that Pike is better at reaching people and making them feel included, that the Maquis feel more included. And I don't think she does that. I think eventually she probably gets like annoyed or bored or power hungry and leaves to go join somebody. But I don't think she cares enough to come back to Voyager and mess with them in the future because
I don't
she
know.
doesn't have any hate or like there's no resentment. She was so mad at Janeway. A lot of what she did is because she was just mad at Janeway. And I don't think she gets that hatred for Pike because I think
Mm,
he approaches it differently. So I don't think she's a problem at all. I think we do lose her in season 1 or 2, but I think she just kind of drifts off into nowhere and is not a problem again.
I kind of So my view on that is Sisko just doesn't like Starfleet because she's a Cardassian. And he gets her off ship sooner, but she becomes a bigger problem because of the Kazon.
But we know from our deep dive last time, Joseph, after when we were talking later, that Pike has the Order of Cardassia. For what we
I
don't
forgot
know.
about that.
For what we don't know. So he's known on Cardassia as some kind of hero. She might have respect for him, unless it was a weird Obsidian Order situation.
That is weird. Now, I think that's an interesting comment that Sisko is the first officer.
I don't see that.
I'm going to push back on that. I don't think so. I think B'Elanna would definitely be because of how powerful she is. I think Sisko doesn't even try at first.
I think the hardest thing is that B'Elanna would fight against it. I think B'Elanna doesn't believe she's worthy of it, and I think that would be hard for her. And I think eventually they would realize that her expertise in the engine room is going to outweigh what she does on the bridge.
Yeah.
But I feel like Pike, like you guys said, he has that way of reaching people on a level that is meaningful to them. And I think he could possibly convince her to take up the role until somebody else steps forward and proves that they could do it better.
So here's the thing. Because of the Order of Cardassia, she knows who Pike is. I think Sisko, now that you bring that up, there's a good chance that Sisko just actually legitimately falls in love with this dude.
I mean,
I what? I've seen Pike's taste in women. He does not always have the best taste. And
this is true.
I think his relationship with the other captain, what's her name? I love her.
Marie Batel.
Yes.
Yeah, Batel.
I think that's a beautiful relationship. I love that. I'm specifically thinking about when
the woman on that planet.
The woman on the planet where they took a child up to a machine.
Yes.
Yeah. He was very distracted by a pretty girl. So maybe Sisko can just seduce him.
Probably. He's not as bad as Kirk.
But I feel like I don't know, wouldn't Chakotay kind of come in between that in some way? Because Chakotay has been with Sisko. Not maybe necessarily together, but they have known each other for a while. Even though Chakotay doesn't know.
Yeah, but Sisko,
he knows her as a Maquis.
I mean, that'll cause conflict between Chakotay and Pike, but Sisko is going to go where the power is.
That's true. And she couldn't with Janeway. Janeway wasn't. That was not an option.
Right.
Because Janeway wasn't willing to even look past the fact that she was Maquis. There's too much suspicion there to begin with.
Right.
Whereas I think you guys are right. I think Pike would be like, look, it doesn't matter. We're all in this boat together.
It's a different thing.
I
think the Pike 7, like you said earlier, is just going to be interesting.
I think once they get 7, he embraces 7 more than Janeway did, which is saying something. He is a great father figure. She's maybe even makes the transition to human faster. And I think he probably would have her, if not first officer, then something really similar. And she's does amazing things scientifically, incredibly intelligent. And I think he would be more likely to be okay, what crazy Borg idea do you have? Let's do it. So I think
it becomes a mad science ship for sure.
I mean, I feel like his hardest battle is going to be the Species 8472 and having to make that decision with the Borg, because I feel like, and I don't think that he would have. And I honestly don't think that he would make the decision on his own. I think that would be one of those moments where Pike is like, okay, we're all getting together, we're all planning this out, we're all deciding, raise of hands. who thinks we should do this and who bring the Borg into the situation, because he is very much a committee oriented captain. Like at the end of the day, he does make the final decision, but he does respect what his officers think as well. And I don't see him just being as gung-ho as Janeway was in the idea of bringing the Borg to defeat 8472. I don't know.
I think if he fails at any point, it's going to be that point. You're spot on.
Yeah.
And I think
maybe the committee is what does fail him. Maybe that's what would fail him, is not just making the decision on his own.
Because Chakotay and Tuvok were not down with that entire idea at all. And I think that is probably, like, if he doesn't make it out, I'm like 50-50 on this, by the way. Like, if he can get past this 8472, then sure, he makes it home. But if he can't get past that decision to partner with the Borg, they don't make it. And I think the last episode of not the last episode, but that episode of Strange New Worlds where he time travels, highlights his inability to do anything even more slightly morally gray, right? Like, this guy is a pinnacle of like honor and believes strongly that the Starfleet way will always make them succeed. And I don't think what Janeway did was very Starfleet. Much like Sisko, that was very morally gray for a specific purpose, and she did not think through, like, what does it mean to partner with the Borg and stop this other bad species? Like, what repercussions will it have for the Alpha Quadrant? She just knew that the Borg were bad, and she was going to do anything she possibly could to get, the 8472 was bad, and she was going to do anything she could to get past them, even partnering with this other species she knows are super bad. Like, but
I do think that if he does do what Janeway does, if he does bring the Borg into it to defeat 8472 and move on and get home, I feel like that is going to be the thing. Like, instead of ending up as he does in his own timeline, that's going to be the thing that paralyzes him for the rest of his life and his career, having to live with that decision. So he might not end up, physically paralyzed like he did and like he will, but he will be mentally, emotionally paralyzed from that decision.
Yeah, it will haunt him.
Yeah.
More so than it haunts anybody else, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So, does he make it out?
I want to say probably.
Marty? Sorry, Van, go ahead.
Especially if he gets 7.
Probably. Okay.
And depending on how he integrates the Maquis crew and whether or not they get him more morally gray by the time he gets to some of the harder decisions. I think he could have some character growth, and we see Sisko make some decisions that he absolutely hates and struggles with in Deep Space Nine. And I think we would get a lot of that from Pike, where it would be, the decision would have to be taken out of his hands, but it's still his decision. And it's still like he is consumed by guilt about it. I think that's what would happen for him in some of these cases. But yeah, I think he does.
Yeah, I think it's like 9 out of 10 he makes it. And that one time he doesn't make it is because his morality gets in the way.
Yeah.
And I feel like his desire and his compassion and his focus to be a good person and a respectful person of all species and cultures is the one thing that would prevent him from getting back. But I think he will, at the same token, I think he realizes that, like, he has all of these lives that depend on him. And he has to respect them as well. So
I think the fact that there are kids, there's a child on board.
Oh, that's true.
I say he'll survive because I consider him the anti-Archer, to be completely honest. He is everything that Archer is not. So I think he does survive, but I think, yeah, it definitely affects him in negative ways.
Scott has an interesting comment here about how he would deal with the Vidians and the phage.
I think he empathizes with the Vidians a lot more. And he probably... That's going to be another hard one, right? Because his default is to stay there as long as it takes to try to help this species out. And it's like, does he build a rapport with them so they don't farm Voyager? Or does he fail at that and ends up getting Voyager farmed? Like, just for parts, basically, like the people, obviously.
I think that's a situation where his diplomacy is going to actually help him. I mean, obviously, he's not going to let them take Neelix. He's going to do the rescue mission to get Neelix back. But then I think he'll handle the diplomacy of it differently than Janeway did.
Yeah.
And to possibly his benefit, if the Vidians can see the benefit of having Voyager not called for parts. Right. But yeah, I think it's going to be another one of those moral situations that if he does make through it, that at the end of the series, he's like just devastated by everything.
Okay. Let's move on.
Lorca. So I have to ask before we start talking about Lorca, who assumed he was a bad guy, like in the beginning of Discovery? Like,
I loved him
immediately because I've never seen this actor play a non-bad guy role.
Exactly. I'm like, you can't play a good guy. That's suspicious. I don't like that. Nope. You're gonna be bad.
Here's the thing. I immediately liked him and his moral grayness. I'm like, oh, he's such a bad guy. Like, it's gonna drop. Somehow he's a bad guy.
But that's why I love this character. I love this character because you know that there's something is not right. You know that this is not a Janeway. This is not a Sisko. We know that there's something with this character. We know it's probably going to be bad, but to what extent? And I just I thought he was such a good character.
I love the character.
The character was very well written, and the actor did an incredible job portraying him. Like, no doubt about that whatsoever. I think the important question for the Delta Quadrant is whether or not Michael is on the ship with him or not, because we know he does some really, really sketchy shit just to get to her. Which is
she won't be on the ship.
Yeah, I think she's not on the ship.
Then he makes it back to the Delta Quadrant. I'm not saying the crew makes it back, but he makes it back to Michael. Maybe with a different crew, maybe with a different ship.
Half Kazon crew, half Herosian crew.
Yes.
Maybe some Borg.
They got a Vidian as a doctor.
The Vidian doctor? No. Harry Kim, still not promoted.
No, absolutely not.
I honestly, I don't even know that he wants to make it out the Delta Quadrant. Like, what does he have to go back to the Alpha Quadrant for?
Michael.
Okay. So that's fair.
Now, if Michael is with him, he just takes over the Delta Quadrant, like Giorgio. Like, he has no desire to leave. He's like, ooh, new place. These guys have no transporters, no replicators. I'm just gonna take over.
It's like that episode where the Voyager crew gets beamed down to the planet and their ship is taken from them. Like, that's the moment where he's like, we're gone, guys. Whew.
I honestly, like, he gives the case on everything they want. They don't hate him. He's not a woman, so they're not as, like, sexist towards him. I think he ends up taking over a sect or three of the Kazon, and, like, none of the other species become a problem because he sacrifices all these other people. And it's a very different show. It's a very dark show. But yeah, he definitely makes it back.
Yeah.
And his first officer is Suitor? Is that what we're saying?
I think Suitor becomes a very important asset to him.
Yeah.
He controls Suitor and uses him in very bad ways.
I don't think he becomes first officer, but I think he is, like, very important, very important. They are good friends. His talents are, well used. I think Seska becomes his number 1, honestly,
Oh, yeah.
and I think
Yeah,
they
no, I
have a
see
Easily.
really
that.
weird, creepy,
Inappropriate.
relationship
Yeah.
that is just, like, very toxic and unhealthy.
Yeah.
And it's definitely mostly based on power and control. And it's definitely them constantly trying to, like, outthink the other one. It would be
It's
a fascinating show. I don't actually want it, though.
it it is the darkest of possible scenarios, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a dark, dark show. It's, it would be probably on par with, like, Game of Thrones and just the amount of people who die bloody deaths.
Oh, poor Neelix.
He is dinner.
Yeah, Neelix is not coming on the
No
ship
way. No way.
in the
And
beginning at all.
Seven doesn't come on board. But he's not going to be nice to the Borg.
Mm-mm.
He's
Mm-mm.
not going to be a father figure to Seven. Like, he will not see her as human. Like, there's just he makes it back, but it is a very dark show.
It is a very dark show.
Yeah, and I don't think any of the Voyager's main crew really makes it with
No.
him. They're not there.
Harry Kim dies like in season 1. Like, let's be honest, he's sacrificed immediately.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he's
It's
actually
not.
demoted into crewman for whatever reason. Like Harry, yeah, this is
Yeah.
bad.
No.
Oh, I
It's
like
all
this.
bad. Lorca makes the same decision as Janeway with Tuvix.
Faster. He makes it faster.
I don't think so because Neelix wouldn't be there to begin with. So it would not even be an issue. But
That's true. He's
also, I
dinner.
don't think he would care enough about either of them to care if they're split. They
I
are
can't
no
remember
longer doing their job.
I can't remember
I
what season it was. But would Tuvok have even survived his Ponfar?
No,
So
No.
they might not. Neither of them might be there.
neither of
None
them
of them.
are there. Tuvok would have stood up to him by now and probably been spaced. Like,
Yeah.
but
I think
faced with that decision, no, Tuvix does not benefit Lorca, so he would not have survived long enough for them to come up with a scientific solution to even split them. He was useless immediately after, like, he was combined.
I think of the
No.
original crew, the only person who survives is the Doctor, because he just gets reprogrammed.
Yeah. No, I see
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Agree. I agree. No argument
Okay,
here.
What's next?
Because he needs the Doctor. Malcolm Reynolds.
I love this
Firefly.
man so much, and I think you'll both disagree with me, but I think he makes it back.
You think Malcolm makes it back?
I know I talked a lot of shit about Han Solo last
Wait,
podcast,
he
and
is Han
people compare
Solo.
them, but he's not.
True, because Mal
Okay.
does have a crew of more than like Chewie.
Yeah. And he is a very, very good leader to his crew. His crew cares a lot about him and listens to him, except Jane. That's a whole other issue. We're not talking about Jane right now. But he also was in the military.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
think he would immediately, like, understand the Maquis. He would immediately incorporate them.
Yeah, but don't you think he would incorporate them at the expense of the Starfleet crew? Like he would give the
don't think he
Maquis
would.
more bridge rolls?
I don't think he would because he also is just really, really good at being like, okay, you are the best person for this situation. Um, so and I think Chakotay would be an amazing first officer for him. There are so many parallels between Zoe and Chakotay, like in personality, they are very similar. Like that would work great. That would work great. And imagine what he could do with a ship that was not constantly falling apart.
I mean, this comment is not wrong.
Okay, there would be one episode where Mal was stranded on a planet naked because Seska got up to nonsense. Seska would definitely be a problem for him. But I think his crew would rescue him.
Okay, I'm going to give you that he's a better person than Han Solo, and he's a better leader than Han Solo.
He's
I will
very
give you that.
moral. He's very moral.
He's a moral guy, and he does have military experience and leadership skills. I think he's totally ill-suited to a Starfleet crew because they are too rigid in their morality, and he has a hard time with Tuvok. I do not think Tuvok respects him at all, and I think Tuvok will treat him like he's Maquis and just throw him in the brig.
I don't see that.
I think I agree that I think he does better than Han Solo, and I think because he's more respectful of the chain of command than Han Solo would have been. My concern is because I do think that Mal is a great captain for a very specific type of ship and a very specific type of crew, and he has gotten through some. I mean, if we want to talk about villains, the villain that he faces in his universe is very similar to Herosian. But and the Vidians, kind of a mix of those two. But my concern would be like, can he lead a crew? Can he inspire them in the way that a captain needs to inspire the crew to even have the motivation to keep going in spite of all these odds against them?
And I think the answer is yes, because in all of the flashbacks to when he was during the war, he was a leader and the troops were inspired to follow him. And he was considered a good leader. He had a lot more people than his small crew. I think he would definitely have a lot of problems. I think every single loss on Voyager would hit him very hard just because of his past. He does have a lot of PTSD from the war. Like
and
most
I think
of his
that's
actions. That would be his biggest downfall. I'll give you that.
He was basically Maquis, right? To Scott's point in the comments. He was leading a rebellion against a centralized power, right? So yes, he has leadership. Yes, he's led people, but I think the trauma from that war, plus his innate need to take care of his crew, will be self-destructive for him. So I don't think he makes it because he's going to be impulsive about something, and he's going to be passionately impulsive about something.
And that's why he has Chakotay. That's why he has Zoe and Firefly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Chakotay is the best.
Chakotay doesn't make it out the Alpha Quadrant
I
on his
don't
own.
I don't know.
Or the Delta Quadrant on his own. Sorry.
No, but I'm saying like
Chakotay. Look,
Mal
no
leans
spoilers.
very heavily on Zoe.
Yeah, no spoilers, but Chakotay doesn't have a great track record in the
But
Delta.
I'm saying all he has to do is what he already does for Janeway. He is a great ear. He helps steer Janeway several times. He does take over kind of as captains when they're in the void because Janeway has, her little breakdown.
Okay.
Which is fair. But I'm just saying
void,
Chakotay can step in for small periods of time and lead. And I think that would be enough. I think it would probably be a really beat up shit by the time.
I mean, I would maybe say that in the beginning, Chakotay would see Mal as an opportunity to take the ship in the first place. And so I feel like before we've even gotten far enough for Mal to be captain, he has to actually win the captaincy over Chakotay.
Here's the thing. Chakotay used to the void. Chakotay was captain of a ship where there was literally no enemy anywhere around. I could captain that ship.
Okay, I understand that he didn't face any issues from outside the ship, but he did face a lot of issues on the ship, having to lead the people through a very difficult time. And I'm saying there are some leadership skills displayed here.
Okay.
But that an interesting point would be, do we get Mal as the first officer and Chakotay as captain? And would that work better? Like, could
That would
Chakotay
actually
with Mal as first officer make it through? Because we say Chakotay can't, but I think I don't know, with Mal as first officer, I think Chakotay would captain better.
Okay, I'm gonna say, I think if it starts off where Chakotay takes Voyager as captain and Mal is first officer, and then somewhere down the road, halfway, season 4, season 5, they switch roles because of something happens, and then Mal becomes captain after having served under Chakotay for 3 or 4 years, then I think Mal will get out. Because I actually think that Mal would do well against the Borg. And I don't know that I can really explain why I think he would, but I feel like he would be very militaristic when it comes to defeating the Borg or getting past the Borg. But I think it's that first few seasons where I'm not convinced that he can do it by himself as a captain.
I'm gonna call it. Both him and Chakotay are stranded on a planet naked with the rest of the crew, and that's it. They're stuck there. There's no like I don't think there's any chance of them getting out of it. And look, I fully am aware that they survived that situation and got Voyager back because of Tom Paris and because of the Doctor and Suitor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I get that, but I don't think he lets Tom Paris leave the ship. I think he makes some dumb decisions. Because he cares for his crew, he makes some bad choices and they don't get off the planet.
Interesting.
I strongly feel Malcolm is a good man who does not make a good Starfleet captain, period.
I think he would make a great Starfleet captain.
I'm here for the argument, so.
He's not. He is Maquis in nature. He is not Starfleet in nature. He doesn't do well with being told what to do when he knows that something else is more morally correct. Right? So
that alone makes him a good Starfleet captain, because I could probably name any Starfleet captain and tell you a time when they were told to do something and they were like, nope, that's not the morally good thing to do. I'm going to do the other thing. Like, they all do that.
Yeah, but that's all he does is the problem, right? That's all he does.
Well, he's not having anyone tell him what to do in the Delta Quadrant. That's why I think
he'll have
could be a quote unquote Starfleet officer, because he's not under Starfleet. He is at that point is like the top of Starfleet. Nobody's bossing him around.
There's no way Tuvok lets him do it, though. There's no way. And even if Tuvok did, he still ends up naked on the planet because of Sisko. That's it.
I mean, regardless of whether Malcolm Reynolds gets the Voyager out of the Delta Quadrant, I think in this case, Harry Kim still not promoted. Sorry.
No, definitely not. We are not promoting him.
I actually think Malcolm would have more sympathy for Harry and would promote him. Because Malcolm, look, Harry is a good, innocent guy, right? He's very Kaylee in that way. Malcolm is actually a lot more empathetic and a lot more willing to step in for his people. So I disagree on that too.
I don't know. I think he's too busy making jokes and stuff.
I mean, there's also that. Look, we're not going to agree on this one.
No, we're divided on this one.
Yeah, the command structure is probably a lot more fluid under Mal. I think he does not stay as Starfleet as Janeway does, as most of the captains probably would. I think he has a much more relaxed command structure, and in which case promotions are no longer important.
I feel like a relaxed command structure would be to everybody's detriment in the Delta Quadrant. But
possibly, yeah, I can see that.
But I do think he would be a good Starfleet captain outside of the Delta Quadrant with training.
With training.
I think he would like Starfleet once he knew what Starfleet was, but given where he comes from, I don't think he's going to give it a chance.
Maybe.
Look, we're not going to agree on this one. Okay, we're moving on. We're moving
That's fine.
on.
I'm okay if you're wrong.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. Leia, General Leia. Love her. I love her so much. I think my answer is very dependent on when in her life she would get stranded.
She survives.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, definitely. I think she definitely survives, but the length that they are in the Delta Quadrant is probably affected greatly by when in time she is stranded. Because if we're talking about like original trilogy, she is a very different person than in the last 3 movies where she is older and wiser and a general with way more trauma. So
I kind of see.
Go ahead.
Oh, go.
I was going to say, he's a very powerful character, even in the original trilogy. So I think she has a harder time surviving, but I think she still gets the crew home.
I see her approaching the situation much in the way we talked about Adama from Battlestar Galactica. I see her operating on a similar method of him that he did, or that he would have.
She was a senator. I mean, she had leadership even in the original trilogy. Plus, she also has the Force, even if she doesn't realize she has the Force. I think the stress of trying to captain the ship through those obstacles brings out. Now, she might end up a Sith by the end of it because of like lack of formal training.
And because of the choices of the Borg and 8472.
Yeah. Like I could see, look, I think she bonds immediately with the crew. I think she has an easier time getting the Maquis to integrate with Starfleet. She is diplomatic and political enough to get Tuvok to accept her leadership. I honestly don't see her having that hard of a time, except for the technology, right, and the different species. But she was senator in an intergalactic senate, right? Like this was across the entire galaxy, not just one quadrant. I think she has some amazing ability to reach out to these different species. She's still very kind and empathetic. She has access to a very powerful ship with very powerful technology, but she is kind and passionate. Like I think she inspires the crew, and they help her get along the first few seasons.
I think her kindness may end up being her biggest downfall, because I think there are some decisions that she has to make that I'm not sure she would make. Like we talked about Pike struggling with some decisions where he has to be morally gray. And I think we would have some of the same problems with Leia. And I love her. I love her. Everything you said, but I'm not seeing her make the same decisions as Gray as Janeway did. And I think there are certain obstacles along the way that you just can't choose the kindest path and overcome.
I do think that she would be in the Delta Quadrant longer than Janeway was. I don't think she would have gotten along with Q, so I don't think Q would have been helpful at all in pushing them forward, even a little bit. So I do. I think she has the chance to do it. I think Joseph. I think you're right. I think the longer that she's in the Delta Quadrant, the more her ability with the Force would become heightened. I think she would learn about it more. She'd have more time. Whether that for good or bad, I don't know. I think there's a lot of with the morality situation. It could go either way. Although it could be a benefit in some of those situations. That maybe if she's able to hone those abilities before, that she can avoid certain conflicts. But I do think they would be in the Delta Quadrant a lot longer.
She would be longer, I think. Yes, I would agree with that. But I think she does get the crew home. I would love to see her interaction with Q, because by that, I don't know, like, I think her force powers get exploited by Q a little bit. He plays with her a little bit more because he knows that she has these latent abilities. So that might actually end up being a challenge for her.
I think it would be a very different interaction.
Yeah,
I think
it would
he
be.
would have a completely different reason for being there. And he would approach it very differently with her. But that would be interesting.
He might approach it in the is this person ascending to a Q status
Yeah.
kind of way.
I don't think she would put up with him
No.
at all.
No,
she
I
would
mean-
not.
I think she'd be very Sisko with him in a
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I think she
no,
tries to
we're not
force
doing
choke
that.
him. Like, honestly.
I don't think that's a good idea. I think Q would enjoy that.
I mean, I think she would just be like, "Look, I've got a serious situation here. I don't have time to deal with you."
Yeah.
And I think Joseph's right. I think he would try to play on the force abilities with her to kind of test what she can and cannot do, possibly to Voyager's detriment. But I don't think he would end up helping them in the way that he helped Janeway.
No, I don't think so. I will say, like, it would take her longer, but she would get back. It would not be easy for her. Because you're right, she is not a person that does morally gray well at all. And you kind of need that.
I
And
love
I think
that about her, that
Yeah.
she is so good, but in this very specific situation. Yeah.
But I do think she would. I think she would interact with the main bridge crew very similar to the way that Janeway did. I think she would have Tuvok's trust. I think she would be kind of wary about Tom Paris, whether or not he's up to snuff, so to speak, for the mission.
I mean, if it's early on, Leia, I think her and Tom Paris hook up. But
yeah, he does have Han Solo qualities.
He does have Han Solo qualities. Like, I think she's just drawn to him. If it's older Leia, not at all, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
she's gotten past that. And it just kind of depends, but it would be an interesting dynamic. She is very Janeway-ish in a lot of ways. So, without the morally gray overtones.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be an interesting fan fiction, though.
Add it to the list.
We need to start writing. Is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
Ooh.
Are we ready to move on?
I'm so excited to move on. I'm here for this one. Jason Nesmith.
This
Galaxy Quest. Oh man, I can see by your faces that we are going to have an argument here.
I love Galaxy Quest. I love Jason Nesmith. But he's not Captain Kirk. He's William Shatner. I don't think he makes it out. I don't think he can.
I mean, for the record, William Shatner has been to space and he survived. He came back.
He sat
You
in a seat. He was an airline passenger on the highest flying airline ever. That's it.
Never
Okay,
give up.
um,
Never surrender.
in my opinion, I don't think he's given the opportunity to captain the whole way home because I think that he's just removed from the captain seat. Because
Look,
while he is a really good leader and the rest of the crew is following him,
no,
I
no,
I
think he
because
makes
I think
it. I think he
that they
makes it.
don't even let him be captain for very long.
here's the
They
thing.
get annoyed
Tom
with him.
Paris knows ancient fiction and film. Tom Paris will see him and it's like, that dude's an actor.
Yeah,
And
but
Tuvok.
I don't think he's gonna lie about that. Because okay, I'm looking at him from the end of Galaxy Quest, not from the beginning.
Okay.
So at the end, he's completed his entire character arc. He's survived that situation. I think he shows up on Voyager. He's just like, what?
You survived the
Um,
filler episode. Come
I
on.
I think he'd be honest with the crew. He'd be like, I play a captain, but he also was a captain, and he made it through that mission. He saved those people. He
Okay.
saved. I think he'd make it. I think the crew would be like, they're gonna stand up and support him. I feel like I don't. I just feel like he learned so much in the course of Galaxy Quest. I feel like he would continue that learning on Voyager. I don't think the crew is going to let him fail. It's going to be funnier. There's going to be more episodes of the Doctor singing, and there's going to be more like situations of Ponfar or Tuvok, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look,
I feel like he would make it. I just in my heart says it.
I don't even think he
I love
wants
that
to
heart
lead.
for you.
I don't even think he wants to lead. The minute he realizes there's a competent crew, and there's Tuvok and there's Chakotay, like he might get them to work together. I think this is the thing, right? Like he does cut across like the initial distrust between Starfleet and the Maquis. But I don't think he does it as captain. I think he does it as like this everyman who does not even want to be captain because there are qualified people here. Now, honestly, he ends up like Neelix. He's just
He's just
kind of
there.
comedy relief. He's just there. Like he
I
runs movie night. That's it.
I can see him maybe ending up in more of a first officer role and Chakotay is captain, but I really think that he recognizes pretty early on that he's not as competent as everyone else around him. And if he doesn't realize that, then the crew is going to, and they're going to be like, "Listen, you're not helping here. You're not helping."
I look early on, he freaks out and like dies fast. Later, Nesmith, he tries to provide some assistance. But at the end of the day, he's not a captain. He's not a real captain. He's like
He was for a little bit.
He would be
Yeah, but-
very, very good in the holodeck. He would be better at writing programs than Tom Paris.
He can
That is my
practice
firm belief.
being a captain in the holodeck. He'd make a holodeck program of everybody, and he could practice.
Okay, so Ryan has a point. Him not wanting to be captain makes him a good captain. I think he does have leadership ability. Trust me.
Oh, he does have leadership ability, but I don't think he has leadership ability to captain a giant Starfleet starship.
With a mixed crew.
You don't think the crew would just be like, look, we're just gonna band together and keep you afloat?
But why
The
do
moment
need
they
him?
realize he is an actor, absolutely not. They would have no faith
No.
in him whatsoever.
I get it. I like Nesmith
I
as a
love him.
character.
I love him. I think they keep him on the ship. I think he's hilarious. I think he really knits together the crew in a very fantastic way. I think the Maquis probably get integrated more quickly because he is just very serious about we got to get along. We got this long trek ahead of us. But I don't think he does it as captain.
But he would be Tom Paris's best friend.
Oh,
He
oh my
would.
goodness.
Absolutely.
They-
I think Harry Kim gets jealous of him and kills him in season 3 is what happens. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
The alternate, the other Harry Kim when he switches places and realizes that there's this new guy on this ship. He's like, who's this guy?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I don't think Chakotay even puppet masters him, Gregory.
I don't think Chakotay.
I mean, I think Chakotay would hate him.
Oh, Chakotay and him would not get along very well.
No.
Which would be interesting.
But I think Tuvok would. I feel like Tuvok would support him. I think Tuvok would try to. I feel like Tuvok would try to. Come on, I feel like
not logical.
He would try. He would try it. He would at least try in the beginning to be like, okay, let's see if this guy can do something. I feel like we would. He follows the chain of command.
There's so many variables to this.
I know. I'm not going to win this argument. I love the idea.
I love that
he could make it. That he could make it, and so many of these other characters couldn't. He has a better shot than Han Solo. Give me that.
I think if he pretended to be a captain and was faking it, yeah, I'm a captain, and they didn't realize he was just an actor. If he just faked it for maybe even the first season, by then they would be like, okay, you do have leadership qualities. We get it. We know now that this is a scam. But we're gonna let you stay here.
I think he definitely has better leadership than Han.
Oh yeah. I do think that he would have to lie in the beginning. And that's the only way that Starfleet crew would accept him until they got used to him and then accepted him overall. And we're like, okay, this is fine. We know the truth now, but we're going to let you have it.
It all kind of depends. Does Tom recognize him or not? That's the linchpin for me.
Tom is the problem here. I think even if Tom did recognize him, that he would not say anything because of the position he is in the beginning. He is not part of the crew. He's just an observer. And I think he would think it's hilarious. And he would also be relying on the fact that under him, Tom would probably be the pilot. He'd be like, oh yeah, he's going to make me the pilot. I'm just going to not say anything.
I'm 50-50 on this. Okay, you have convinced me to go from definite no.
I don't think Tom says anything.
I'll take 50-50.
I'll take 50. I'm at 50-50. Okay?
It's a coin toss.
Okay.
All right.
I think we can agree on that.
Okay. What who do we have next?
Oh, that's a great question.
I know. Nesmith.
Ooh.
Not Nesmith.
Friend.
Where is?
Isn't it?
It's Ellen Ripley.
Oh, yeah, but where's my picture? I don't have the picture. Oh no, I failed completely.
I got a picture of her, didn't I?
Yeah. I failed completely. There we go.
There it is.
There she is.
Okay.
So I think we can all agree if she is captain, then Starfleet is going to listen to her. The crew's actually going to take her seriously and listen to her.
I feel like Starfleet protocol goes out the window, though. I feel like this is a much more, I don't want to call it a militant ship, but it's much more of a, okay, we got to do what we got to do in order to survive this.
I think she survives. I think the crew gets home. I don't think it's easy.
And I don't think the ship is in good shape at all.
No, I don't think so. She is compassionate in many ways. And she's obviously a very powerful leader. I think she gets home. It even kind of depends on how well she does depends on which version of Ripley you get, right?
Yes. I don't disagree with that.
I think if it's after the second movie, there's so much trauma. It's a little. It's she can deal with things. She's better equipped, but also I think the Borgs like freak her the hell out.
But I think, like you made that comment earlier, with Pike, that there are children on this ship.
True.
And I think that for her, with the experience with Newt, I think that is going to motivate her in a way that maybe wouldn't be there for first alien Ripley.
Yeah. And I think her relationship with Seven is probably very similar to Janeway's.
I
think she gets freaked out.
isn't. I think it's more of a struggle for her to accept someone who is Borg. I think that is a challenge for her. I think she still does because she can recognize, oh, Seven is human. But I think she is more standoffish just because of trauma. But if we're taking a much earlier, like movie 1, Ellen, I think she is more nurturing towards her, which would be great.
I think the Borg would be interesting because I feel like she would see a lot of similarities between the Borg and aliens. I mean, there is a parasitic aspect to both of them. And I think she would have trouble with the EMH. I think the doctor would be a little too android for her in the beginning. And so that would be, that would be a problem because she doesn't have any other doctors. She wouldn't have a choice but to have him on the ship. But I don't know that he would get the ability to ever leave the ship.
It's definitely a different situation. You're right, Van. I think it is more militaristic. Wait, who said that? I can't remember. Anyway,
like I don't think she's gonna. Yeah, I don't think she's gonna have qualms about making the hard decisions. I don't think the morality is gonna play as much of a role as it does with Starfleet characters. I feel like she's gonna be like, oh, species 8472, whatever. Bring in the Borg, get rid of them. All right, let's get rid of the Borg. Let's do what we have to do to survive, just us on the ship. So I don't think the morality aspect is going to be a problem for her. But that could be a problem for her crew trying to work under her.
I don't know. I think by the time she gets into the really hard choices, the crew kind of warms up to her because she is a good leader and she does care for her people. Again, Tuvok, I think, butts heads with her a little bit, but I honestly think Tuvok butts heads with anybody who isn't Janeway because of just that relationship that he has with Janeway, right?
They do have a really solid relationship before the start of the show.
Yeah.
They have a deep friendship, which is very instrumental for Tuvok in Voyager.
Yeah, I think Janeway really makes a lot of her decisions based on Tuvok as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
well, she's used to the logic. And so I think the times where you see her kind of like act a little different, she's kind of like separating a lot of her emotion because of their experience of Tuvok, right? Like in my mind, Janeway always says, "What would Tuvok do?" And it's not because she thinks he's a better leader, it's because she needs that voice of opposition. Like she needs that input, and I think it's like super essential for her.
I understand that.
I do think Ellen survives, but it's not the same ship. It's
I think there's a lot more close calls with Ripley. I feel like the ship is not in great shape at all when it gets back. Like, does it even have impulse drive by the time they get back? I don't know.
The ship is probably rough. I would love to see Ellen. I would love to see her captain a crew that immediately listens to her and just does what they're told. I'd love to see that.
I mean, I think she'd do great in the Year of Hell. I mean, that basically was a Ripley two-parter, right? I mean,
no, that would be amazing. I think she would do really, really well in a lot of the big morally gray situations that Janeway probably struggled more with. I think she would make those decisions more quickly. I think I don't know. I think she would make it back. I think it would probably take longer, and the ship would be beat up if it is the same ship.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay, Ripley survives.
She makes it.
I think so.
Next one.
Next one. I'm kind of torn on this one. You
The
guys are gonna
fries
have to
may
help me
hate
out.
me. The fries may hate me after this. Just saying.
So here's my.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go out here and off a limb.
Okay.
First of all, I love Jack O'Neill. He's one of my favorite science fiction characters
Yeah.
ever.
Right.
And I think he's great in his situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I think a lot of his success comes from Carter, Teal'c, and Daniel. And they carry him through a lot of this really difficult situation. So I don't know how he would do without them.
Jack does not survive without Daniel and Carter.
I'm not sure he does. Those 4 characters are so wonderfully written together.
Well, they're so
Like,
interwoven.
exactly. And all of the weaknesses are somebody else's strengths. Like, they rely very heavily on each other, and they really need each other for certain roles. So, as much as I love him, I'm not sure he makes it back.
I
And
don't
I
think.
don't think Chakotay, like, I don't think he'd let the Maquis
No.
join the way
No.
Janeway did. He's way too military for that.
Yeah. That
And
would be his first mistake.
Yes.
Is not
Yeah.
bringing them on faster.
Yeah.
Because maybe with time, I think with time, he would then eventually see them as, like when he brought Teal'c to the crew. But I feel like that's just too many of them right off the bat that he would say, no, we're sticking with the Starfleet crew. To the point where it gives Chakotay too much time to be like, how do we mutiny this?
I think it would be a problem, and I'm gonna be Joseph here and say that him and Tuvok would butt heads. This one, absolutely.
Yeah,
Those
this
2
one
are
for
not
sure.
getting along.
No.
They're not getting along at all. And without Tuvok,
Yeah,
I
it's not.
don't know.
Look, if he had SG-1 with him,
Oh,
they
he'd be
integrated the
fine.
crew fine. Because
Fine, because
Daniel.
we already said we thought that Sam would make it.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
Sam is a little bit more open than I think Jack is. I don't think Jack is as open to communication with people as Sam is. I think that's something he learns from Sam.
Yeah.
In SG-1.
Absolutely.
And then the morality side of things, he's so rigid. It's his exposure to Daniel that loosens him up as well, right? Like, he depends on Sam as a trustworthy second. And that's important for him. But all that morality side, the Jack, you can't do that. Like, without that voice,
Yeah.
things go way different. And I don't know that anybody on the Voyager crew can do that for him right off the bat.
Yeah, I don't see anybody on Voyager filling the Sam void. Nobody seems. There really isn't. Is there a Voyager character that kind of fits that mold? I don't really think
Janeway.
so. I mean, yeah, okay.
Janeway's probably the closest, but still no. And I don't know that there's like a Daniel.
There's no Daniel.
No, there really isn't. That's interesting because usually you see these character archetypes in all the shows somewhere, but there really isn't a Daniel-like character or a Sam character in Voyager.
No.
There's not a Jack character.
I love this. He's as diplomatic as Archer.
Yeah, he might be as diplomatic as Archer, which is why he needs Sam and Daniel there.
Yeah, I love Jack. I love SG-1. But here's the thing. Janeway is the closest to a Daniel and to a Carter. And without Janeway on that crew.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's a good way
like,
of
I think
looking at
Chakotay kind of plays to some of the social aspects of Daniel, but I don't see him getting along with Jack at all.
Oh, goodness. I don't think Jack would like Chakotay at all.
No.
And they would not immediately get along.
I don't see it. I mean, again, this is one of those things where I would love to hear what the Fries say about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the Fries
Maybe
will
we should bring them on sometime.
we need
Discuss.
to.
Yeah.
We need to.
that would be a fun podcast.
And I think Scott makes a great point here where something that happens in the Stargate movie, he would stay behind, nuke the array, and send the crew back. Not the same character between the series and the movie. Not completely.
Yeah, they're a little different.
They are similar, but not the same.
It's like Jack O'Neill with 1 L or 2 L's. There's a difference.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, I feel like the SG-1 version, the Richard Dean Anderson version, I don't know that he would be... So early on, he doesn't know the crew. He doesn't know these people. If his people were there.
Yeah.
If Sam and Daniel, if they were there, 100% I believe that he would do that. But I don't know that he would. He just shows up on the ship and he doesn't know everybody.
No.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay. Sorry, Jack. But no.
Sorry, Jack. But
okay. Are we
I mean,
ready?
some people have to not make it, right?
Yeah. Are we ready?
We're ready. I think.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if we're ready.
I don't think we're ready for this one, honestly. What's his name? Arnold Rimmer?
Arnold Rimmer.
Yeah.
Okay, I watched the first episode.
Yeah, I had to rewatch it too to remind myself.
That's all.
I haven't seen Red
That's
Dwarf
all I
in, like,
ended up watching was the
years.
first episode.
Okay.
And I had never watched the show, so I don't have a lot to say.
I did go back and reread his Wikipedia because I had remembered I had seen it. I'd seen maybe not the entire show, but I've seen a lot of it. But it was a long time ago, so I couldn't remember. But I just feel like,
look,
if you're not going to give me Jason Nesmith, I don't think I can give you guys Rimmer.
Rimmer doesn't survive. He doesn't stand a chance in hell.
Okay.
Arnold Rimmer is a self-proclaimed coward. He has no leadership ability. He's only in charge of Red Dwarf because he was the highest ranking person
that survived
on the ship that survived. He's a hologram, first of all. He didn't survive. Like,
true.
The ship AI is so insane. This is what they brought back to keep Lister sane.
Yeah.
There's no chance. Now, there's a version of Rimmer that would be great. And that's later
the Ace
on.
Rimmer? Is this the Ace
Rimmer?
Yeah.
Has like compassion and leadership and bravery. He's everything that Arnold Rimmer is not. But if it's not Ace, there's not a chance in hell he gets eaten by the Kazon in episode 1.
Well, no, because he's a hologram. He can't even do anything.
Oh, yeah. Like him and the doctor, him and the doctor don't even like each other.
No. Oh, no.
See, maybe he does make it back, but it's just him and the doctor.
Him and the doctor.
Just
no, they don't make it back, but they're just the last ones left on Voyager, floating aimlessly in the Delta Quadrant.
No life support.
With no life
support. The minute he sees the array and the Kazon open fire, he panics. And somehow the warp core breaches. Arnold Rimmer has the worst leadership ability of any character in fiction.
He's bad. He is bad.
Hearing Rimmer so much makes me uncomfortable.
Okay. Yeah. He doesn't make it, and we love him anyways.
We love him.
But I do love the idea of like nobody making it, and then Voyager just crash landing on some planet, and it's just him and the doctor for eternity until the power goes out.
That is the entire series, is them on the planet arguing on the ship.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I love it.
That was funny. I know he's not on our list, but I feel like I should have added Captain Jack Harkness just because he is a captain.
Ooh.
Whoa.
And I
Do we
forgot,
want to
which is
delve
embarrassing.
into that real fast before we go?
I have lots of thoughts.
You start us off.
If it's when he's first introduced, no, absolutely not. He's not
No.
leading. He's not leading anything. But Rose and the Doctor have an amazing influence on him, and he changes a lot. And by the end of the first season, he is like on that space station taking the lead. He is being a leader, so he made tremendous growth. And then after that, he becomes immortal, so he has all the time in the world to change. And so by the end of his story arc, when we see him as just a head, as the face of Bo, he's literally doing everything he can to take care of like an entire planet, like a whole civilization, until the Doctor can come back. Oh, yep, there he is. Beautiful man. Love him. But yeah, he takes care of a whole planet till somebody comes and saves them. I think probably as long as he is past his I can't be a leader arc and is more in his leader arc, I think they make it back. I think it takes twice as long. I think it's the children or the grandchildren of the original crew.
And he's still there.
Yeah. Well, time means a little bit less when you can't die.
Yeah.
But
I have to
he
agree.
has no problem with any of the morally gray decisions. I think it would be a slightly, I think it would be a slightly darker show.
I agree. I think it would be a darker show. And I think you're right about the timing of him. I think if he's past that initial introduction of him that we get with the Ninth Doctor,
yes,
then I do think that he is capable of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, he's Torchwood. He knows technology. He's from the future.
Yeah, it's not totally new to him.
Yeah. He does well, but it is darker.
And, there is that theory that, I mean, the Doctor Who universe knows about the Star Trek universe. So he might know something about this already.
Wait. Go into that theory. So that.
Well, there are a lot of Star Trek references on Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So the Doctor Who world recognizes Star Trek as, if it's not a fandom in the world, is a possibility of it being a universe, as a connected universe. So I would almost give anybody from the Doctor Who world an up on the knowledge of technology in the Star Trek universe. If they knew about, because I think they know about it. I firmly believe that Doctor Who knows that Star Trek is an adjacent universe to theirs. Like, he's been there, I think.
I agree.
Well, I mean, they have
comic books. They've had comic books, yeah.
Okay. He survives.
I think he survives. Yeah.
I mean,
but I do think,
of course, he survives.
I think Tuvok says you have to wear the uniform, but he wears the coat over the uniform.
Yes. Yeah. Right. He's keeping the coat. The coat is important. Yeah. I think him and Q would be very interesting.
That would be fun.
That would get way too flirty, way too fast.
Yes. That would be.
And I think that would make Q uncomfortable because somebody would actually flirt back, and I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how he would handle that. But that would be interesting.
I think he would. I think the first time he comes and shows up, he would be problematic for him, and he'd leave. And then I think he'd come back and be like, "All right, I'm ready for you now this time.
Yeah,
I'm prepared."
I would love to see him with Seven. I think he would definitely adopt Seven in the same way as Janeway. He is really good with kids.
I think he'd have a lot of sympathy for Seven's situation too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I can talk about Jack all day.
I know, and I don't want to step on your discussion of Jack, but I see him as very warm to the crew, and I think that is a little spicier of a show, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that's not on just regular cable. That's like on Showtime or HBO.
Tuvok doesn't have to worry. He's good to go.
Tuvok's fine.
I feel like
There are
Sisko,
probably a lot more kids on the show.
I feel like
Well-
Sisko and him have an interesting dynamic.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, interesting. I definitely, but I like the idea of it. It's a second generation ship by the time it gets back to the Alpha Quadrant, and we've got like what's her name's daughter is like maybe she's his second in command at that point.
Oh, Naomi as the
Naomi
second in
Wildman?
command.
Yeah,
She would be
Naomi.
so good at that job, though.
Yeah,
She would be so good.
I would love to see this. Anyway, okay.
I would love this. I would love this.
attention
You
all
know me,
fanfic
though.
writers out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that is our discussion for today. We've covered all of our captains, which was a lot of captains.
It was a lot of captains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
That's
going to
a lot.
lead us out, Van?
Am I going to lead us out? The big question is, did we decide on our next topic? I think we were discussing our next podcast. And I think we talked
we did.
about. Yes, we're going to do which sci-fi universe would be the best, worst, and most fun to live in. I already have so many thoughts. Like so many thoughts.
I've got to go rewatch so much stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I can just
I
get
feel
on
like I know what my
Wikipedia for a
best
while.
is. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
I know what my best is, but I feel like the worst. There are so many that I think are the worst that that's gonna be a hard one.
The one
Yeah.
I'm going to pick for the worst is going to get me absolutely canceled.
Oh, I
look
know
forward
what
to
you're gonna
that.
say.
We
I
look
think I
forward
know
to
what you're
that.
gonna
That'll be
say.
great.
But remember,
Probably
we just
agree
talked
with
about
you.
aliens, so
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not that wouldn't even be my worst. It's the wild part of it. So
oh wow, okay, I'm excited.
okay.
Okay. Let's move on because now I have thoughts about the worst. And
So join us
we'll
next
wait.
time.
Join us next time to watch all of us get canceled by every nerd. But that concludes the Delta Dilemma Part 2. We are so glad you tagged along. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, send our podcast to your mom. We are very popular with moms already. I know my mom listens. And then share your podcast with your friends, especially if they're going to argue with us, because that drives up engagement. But tune in next time to listen to us all get canceled.
Take care.
Going out to explore. Tune in comes to another Frakkin podcast. Time travel, wormholes, and more. Chevron's locked on another Frakkin podcast. Debating all the lore. We get signal of another Frakkin podcast. Nerdy topics galore. Systems go for another Frakkin podcast.